What do you think of this then? Cyclists must be prepared at all times for people to behave in unexpected ways. That's the words of a judge in this case. Have you heard about this case? A pedestrian took a cyclist to court for running into her on the road while she was on her phone. But the judge has decided they were both at fault, but she has won a compensation. Apparently the light was green for him. Apparently he sounded an air horn to warn pedestrians. But the judge said that cyclists must be prepared at all times for people to behave in unexpected ways. So who is to blame in this situation? Do you agree with the judge? Are you ever finding yourself in a situation where cyclists, you're watching them do things that they shouldn't be doing? Or as a cyclist, do you see pedestrians doing this all the time, stepping out in front of you on their phones, not even looking to see if anything's coming? 08000 85 95 95 or text 81333, starting your message with the word tease. Nick Freeman is a motoring lawyer. You might know him as Mr. Loophole, and he's joining me now, can hopefully explain this case a bit more to me. Now, this was a civil proceeding, is that correct?
That's right, Anthony. Good morning to you. Yes, she was the injured party, apparently, although they were both knocked unconscious, and she sued him, and that's why she got compensation and he didn't. Her compensation would have been reduced on the basis that she was also responsible. And what the judges said, which is significant from the cyclist perspective, is, look, just as motorists have to drive with care and attention, you've got to anticipate and expect, well, so do cyclists. And where the law's lagging behind is there's no real teeth in the offence of cyclist driving without due care and attention. And, of course, that's something that needs to be looked at. And in my view, there should be a law that prohibits pedestrians from crossing the road whilst on their mobile phones, because it's inherently dangerous, and she stepped out in front of him, and this cyclist actually had a horn. He pressed the horn, she was confused, and they both turned in the same direction and knocked each other unconscious. So I do have some sympathy with the cyclist, because it's not so easy to manoeuvre a cycle. When you're committed, you can't just turn out into the road because there's vehicles there. So I do have some sympathy with him, but what the judge is saying is, look, as a cyclist, if you see a pedestrian on the pavement and you think they're about to cross or they might cross, you've got to be ready. You've got to be ready to stop, just as the motorist would. And I don't know whether you're a car driver, Anthony, but if you are, time and time again, you will have seen somebody, a pedestrian on the roads, on the pavement, about to cross, and you know they haven't seen you, you know they're not paying attention, and the law doesn't entitle you to mow them down, as tempting as that might be. You have to wait, you have to sound your horn, you have to warn that they're there, and if you are involved in an accident, then you will be prosecuted for a criminal offence.
So there's nothing in law at the minute that has any sort of stipulations about whether or not the pedestrian was paying attention or not?
No, there is no law at all about that. And what's happened? These are civil proceedings, as you stated. So it's county court. It's not the criminal court. And what's happened is she's sued him for the injuries that she's sustained, coupled with any compensation that she needs for time off work, et cetera. And whatever her claim would have been, it would have been reduced significantly because of her contributory negligence, because of the fact that she stepped out in front of him, glued to the phone, not paying attention.
So as far as the law is concerned,
there is an obligation. From a criminal perspective, well, there is no law at the moment saying, cyclists must walk and pay due care and attention. It's always a significant factor if they are the complainant, if they are the victim, but there isn't a law that requires them to do that.
So the law, is it on favour of the cyclist, or is the law currently in favour of pedestrians in this?
It's loaded very much at the moment in favour of pedestrians, and that's why I think it's a matter of common sense, isn't it? You can't have pedestrians just stepping out into the road, not paying attention, and saying to motorists or cyclists, look, it's entirely your fault if you hit us. They must assume some responsibility from a criminal perspective. They do from a civil perspective, and that's why the claim was reduced. But from a criminal perspective, you can have fatal accidents where people have stepped out in front of you, and even the investigation is traumatic. You've killed somebody. It happened to somebody who was in fact working with me doing a training contract. And they were involved in a fatal accident. A drunk stepped out in front of them, and they ended up dead, literally in the passenger seat. He was investigated. He wasn't prosecuted. He hadn't done anything wrong, but he lives the rest of his life knowing that he's killed somebody. So we have to place a responsibility on pedestrians, and at the moment the law doesn't require that. Certainly the criminal law doesn't place any responsibility on them at all, and it's wrong, and it needs to change. And with all this going on with Brexit, maybe when we get a new Prime Minister, maybe he'll start to address the serious concerns that exist on our roads.
So until that law is changed, or until something changes in that law, what should cyclists do? Should cyclists be insured? Should cyclists be licensed? Or
Oh well, cyclists first of all need to have some identifiable feature. They need to have insurance, and from the way they cycle, they need to pass a proficiency test. In my view, they need to make sure their cycles are of a standard that enables them to drive properly on the roads in the same way. They need parity with motorists, in my view. But from a legal perspective, in terms of how they must cycle with due care and attention. And that involves them anticipating the unexpected actions of other people, for example, in this case, pedestrians stepping out in front of them. And it makes it very difficult for them because typically they're going to be hugging the pavement, they might be in a cycle lane, they don't have much room to maneuver. And as I say, I do have some sympathy with them because it is very difficult. They don't have the protection around them that a motorist has.
Thank you very much, Nick Freeman, motoring lawyer. You might know him as Mr. Loophole from the tabloid newspapers. So, do you agree?